A very pleasant good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Happy New Year 2018. Welcome into O'Neill's Grill for our weekly Fan and Press Luncheon with JMU football coach Mike Houston. Also joining us today will be Sean O'Regan, the JMU women's basketball coach. Coach Lewis Rowe will not be joining us today as he and the Dukes are preparing for tonight's home game against the Tribe of William and Mary. And let me give you a few details on that ball game before we invite Coach Houston here to the podium. By the way, if you have yet to place your order here at O'Neill's today, I do highly recommend the Bison Burger, okay? It is a very good deal. In fact, you can get a Bison Burger for the same price of a good old beef burger. So do that here today. I plan to have it on my menu here this afternoon and have it many times past, in fact. Let's go to basketball again tonight. The Dukes are at home against the Tribe of William and Mary. Very busy opening week for CA men's basketball. They're playing 4 games in 9 days, and this is game number 2. Tonight's game tips off at 7 o'clock at the Convocation Center. The Tribe coming in with a record of 8-4 and 1-0 in the CAA. William and Mary opened up on Saturday with a 90-87 win at home against Hofstra on tying and game-winning three-pointers by Connor Birchfield. Those three-pointers came in the final 24 seconds of the contest. The Tribe leads the nation in three-point shooting accuracy. They're number 3 in free throw percentage and number 5 in field goal percentage, one of the more efficient offensive clubs in the country. So the Dukes will be posed with that challenge tonight. You can hear the game on the JMU Sprint Broadcast Network, including our flagship station, News Talk Radio 550 AM in Harrisonburg and 92.1 FM. That's tonight. Tonight's game will not be seen on Matazone. This is the CBS Sports Live game of the week. So the crew of Jeff McCarriger and Mac McCarthy will be here to bring you the ball game. Again, that's through CBS Sports Live, so I get to have the night off, and I'll just sit back and enjoy the ball game myself. Let's move along here. After we finish with Coach Houston, then we will bring up Sean O'Regan, the head coach of the JMU women's basketball Dukes. A couple of other things before we do bring up Coach Houston. Coverage for the football game on Saturday. You can also hear that on the JMU Sprint Broadcast Network, including Matazone free audio. That coverage begins at 11 a.m. Kickoff from Frisco against North Dakota State is at noon, and coverage there on ESPN2. So those are your 2 coverage areas. They will have a watch party here at O'Neill's. Now, Monica and Tim are heading to Frisco, so good for them. So while the parents are away, we'll all play right here. How about that? We'll do that on Saturday. And they will open the doors at 10:30 Saturday morning for the 12 o'clock kickoff. So come in early, and I'm sure Bison will be on the menu for brunch that day as well. We started 2017. It was a good year for JMU athletics all in all, and we certainly did kick it off very well by winning the program's 2nd national title. And let's bring on Coach Houston as his Dukes going for the program's 3rd national crown. Coach.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here again this week. It's good to be having a press conference in January talking about football because that means we're still playing. Certainly excited about the opportunity coming up this weekend. Thanks to Mo and Tim for letting us be here at O'Neill's again this week. And, we've gotten them. When I first got here, Mo and Tim had never been to a JMU game, and now they're to the point that they're going down to Frisco for the championship game. So we've won them over. But, certainly a great honor to be a part of the championship game down in Frisco this weekend, representing the CAA conference, and an opportunity to go down and compete against what, when I took the job here, was the standard in FCS football in North Dakota State. I think it's the matchup that everybody, early in the year, preseason kind of penciled in as kind of the 2 teams that had the best shot to get there, but certainly there's been a lot we both had to go through and overcome and achieve in order to get to this point. But I think that says a lot about just the depth of both programs and the players that we have in those programs. It's a situation where you have the clear top 2 teams in the country, matching up this Saturday in Frisco, Texas. So it's an exciting time to be a Duke. It's a lot of attention to the university and to the football program that has really, we've been able to put our best foot forward and show just what a special place JMU is. So the kids are really excited. They're practicing very, very well right now. We had a very spirited practice yesterday in single-digit weather, and you're a little concerned going out how effective practice would be, but they really practiced at a high level. I guess they figure the more they move around, the warmer they're going to be. So they did a great job yesterday. We'll be out as soon as I leave here. I'm going straight back for a team meeting, and we'll be out on the field, a little before 2 this afternoon for our final padded practice here in Harrisonburg. We'll have a helmet practice tomorrow morning, and then leave the APC about 11 o'clock, headed to Charlottesville to fly out to Frisco. So the positive thing is having a lot of players that were on last year's roster. They know what to expect when we get down there. They know the challenges that we'll face with, all the attention and the hoopla and everything that surrounds a championship game. And we've talked about, keeping the things important that are really and truly important. And we've got a job to do, and the kids know that. We have an opportunity to do something really, really special. We have an opportunity to, be able to hoist that trophy one more time. And I think it's something that especially our seniors are very motivated by. So right now we feel like even though we're facing, the biggest challenge of the year, and we're facing the best football team we've seen all year, I think that our kids are really excited for the opportunity. So should be a great game on Saturday, and we're glad to be a part of it. Questions?
Coach Dave Thomas, ESPN Radio Harrisonburg, the JMU Sprint Broadcast Network. So much is made about their offense deservingly. So when it starts on the ground, break down their offense. What makes them so effective at what they do in running the football?
Well, I think, much like us, they've had some challenges there with injuries. Lance Dunn was leading the nation in rushing for the first 7 weeks. He goes down, and they haven't missed a beat. I think Bruce Anderson is the one that really stands out to you. He's a dynamic back, and I think he had 183 yards in the semifinal game against Sam Houston State. But anytime you see consistent production like that from multiple people, then it's all got to start up front with their offensive line. And I think that they're big, they're physical, they're well coached, they play with an attitude and an edge. They do what they do. They really come off the football and get after you. I like all their tight ends. Wentz gets a lot of the attention. But Isles and the other tight ends, I think they have 4 tight ends that are all very good blockers, good receivers. But I think they just do such a good job of doing what they do and being so physical and getting in your face, so quickly that it really challenges you. And of course, they do a great job with Easton Stick and the play-action game off of their run game, which that number one, it slows you down a little bit, and number two, if you're overly aggressive and undisciplined, then obviously you're going to pay the price with the big plays there. So, but I think it all starts really with their front and the great job that they've done all year long.
You talk a little bit about Easton Stick, and what are some of the things that concern you the most about him and stands out about him?
Well, I think the big thing is now you have a guy that last year when we saw him, he was a first-time starter, first time playing in a national semifinal game, even though he had been on the roster before. And he had played a good bit last year early in the year. But still, he's a guy now that has that big stage experience. And so anytime you have a quarterback that is experienced, you got a shot. No different with us. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing is you look at him, physically he's a big, strong player. And not only does he throw the ball well, he's a very dangerous threat running the ball. And he's not a finesse running guy. He's going to lower his shoulder and try to run over you, and he's a very physical ball carrier. But he's really going to challenge us, with running the quarterback run plays, and then he does just such a great job of the play action game and not making mistakes. You don't see him turn the ball over a whole lot, which gives them a chance with their run game. So I think really he's the key to making their offense operate and execute at a high level.
Greg Medea, DNR, with how they work defensively, they create a lot of negative plays. How do you guys stay on schedule, and is it something you've talked about?
Well, they're extremely aggressive. They're big and strong up front, and I think the mentality that they take on defense really feeds off of the way they are on offense. And I'm sure that comes from the way they practice and going against each other. But they're big and physical up front on defense. They really get after you. The safeties are extremely aggressive. 3 is one of the best safeties we've seen since I've been here, and he's a really special player. And so I think that, number one, we're going to have to do a great job of matching their physicality, and we're going to have to do a tremendous job up front of really trying to win the point of contact. And then, we're going to have to do a good job with our play-action game. If they are going to be that aggressive, and it's the same thing I talked about with us, then we're going to have to do a great job with throwing off of our run game, and that'll be important Saturday. But at the end of the day, both teams are going to try to run the ball, and both teams are going to try to stop the other one from running it. So it's kind of like two immovable objects that are going to collide there on Saturday, which should make it a pretty exciting matchup.
David Guzman, TV3 in Harrisonburg. Feels like forever ago since senior day back in November.
Yeah.
How has that group helped propel you guys in the playoffs? How special is that group? And obviously, has it hit you yet that it's your last week with that group?
Yeah, that's we talked about it a little bit yesterday, because yesterday was their last full padded practice at JMU, and they were kind of joking around that last one, glad to get this over with or whatever. But really and truly, they know, and I know that these are times that you'll talk about for the rest of your life, as a player. And this group has been, just like with last year's group, this year, they were the leaders of the team when I got here. They were the older players, and I think that their commitment, their belief in myself and the rest of the staff, and their ability to really come together over the last 2 years has built the backbone of this program. And there's a lot of talent in this class, obviously, but to be honest, I think this group plays above its talent level. I think that the intangibles with the character and the toughness and the work ethic and the leadership that this group has allows them to play above what their God-given ability is. And so I think they've set the standard for the classes to come. We have a talented young group in the locker room as well that will be on the field a couple of years from now, and I think that this group of seniors right here has really set the standard for expectations for how you go about doing things on and off the field. So this will be a special game this Saturday for that reason, and we've talked about this is going to be our last game together, and it's something that I'm sure that not only will we not forget this season, but we won't forget this Saturday. And this is a group that I'll probably reference for years to come for multiple reasons, but mostly for the way they have led in a positive manner on and off the field.
Coach, you've had about 3 weeks since you played last. You had the Christmas break in there, which you had some downtime for not only your staff and yourself, but your players. How have you managed that time? I know you've broken down film on North Dakota State, but how have you prepared for the trip to Frisco and around all the things that go on? How have you guys utilized this extended break you've had?
It's been a lot of hours in the office. So we took 4 days off for Christmas total, and I think everybody needed that mentally. But other than that, we've been in the office every day, and as soon as you win that game, you start immediately with the preparations for what's going to happen once you get on the ground down in Frisco. And so we've got everything set now with our practice times, our meeting times, and what time we're eating, what time we're going to get up on Saturday, and kind of the routine for both the travel and the non-travel players. But there's a lot that's went into it. But I think that the 3-week layoff, it does a couple things. I think that number one, it does help us get a little bit healthier as a team. I think number two is you're probably as prepared for this game as you're ever going to be for a ball game. I'm sure North Dakota State's the same way. I mean, it's to the point now where the players know what's coming about the time the scout team lines up, and they're calling out when the motions are going to motion, and it's all the preparation that's went into this game it's really enormous. But in all that being said, all of a sudden when you get to Saturday, it's going to be whatever you do for that 60 minutes right there. So it's a lot of preparation, it's a lot of investment, and hopefully the reward is being able to hoist the trophy again. So, but we've got to go out and earn that on Saturday from 12 till probably about 3:30 in the afternoon.
Having been through all this last year, going there last year, how much does that kind of help having that experience for the players? Just kind of understanding what to expect when they get to Frisco.
Right. Well, I think that helps a lot. The one thing that's different, we do have a different hotel this year, but other than a different hotel, everything else is the same. The schedule's very similar as far as our responsibilities with the NCAA. Our practice routine, we'll be able to do about the same things we did last year, so that's positive. The ability to kind of know the stadium, Unfortunately, the locker rooms are still the same locker rooms we were in last year. I don't think the new ones are ready yet. So it will be a tight fit right there with us and NDSU right next to each other. But at least we know that, and we know what that's going to be like, and the kids know how to navigate that. So I think all those experiences will help everybody just be prepared for what to expect when they get there, and I think that takes some of the angst off of it for everybody, players and coaches. So then you can just focus on what's the most important, which is playing the game.
That running back room, good grief, has been through a lot this year. How unique is the dynamic in that room between those players, and how has Marcus kind of emerged in some ways as the guy who's carrying the weight of his teammates' shoulders?
Well, I think that that room is a microcosm of our entire roster. They've faced a season-ending injury in Carden Johnson. Carden's had successful surgery and he's back with us. He's not practicing, but he's in the facility every day and he's rehabbing and he's a part of our roster. They've had some guys banged up at various times during the year. We've dealt with tragedy with Trey and his family, and at the same time, they've went out and they've stuck together every single week and they've played at a very high level. So I think that really they are kind of a reflection of our entire roster. Marcus certainly is playing his best ball of the year right now. The last 3 weeks, he's been as good as he's been since he got here, and he's been what we expected him to become. When we first were able to sign him when he left Georgia Tech. So I think he's a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal person. He has went about the transition and acclimating to our roster as good as you possibly could. He is well respected and liked in the locker room. And then I think he has the confidence now that he can go out and he can play at an extremely high level, which he demonstrated against Weber State and South Dakota State.
The experience you have on your coaching staff in big game scenarios, we've talked about that time and time again. Knowing an opponent as well as you know them by now, do you have to fight off the temptation to say, hey, let's make this radical change, or let's make this? Is there a calming voice in your room to go, no, here's what we need to do, and is that voice you?
Well, I think, I said when I was introduced 2 years ago as the head coach at James Madison University, I made the statement that the goal of this program was going to be to win the CAA championship every year and to compete for national championships, because I thought that's what the potential of the program was. And so when I've said this before, when I put the coaching staff together, I tried to hire people that had that kind of experience, that had the experience to perform in those kind of ball games, playoff games, bowl games, whatever. Because I felt like the program, we were going to get to that point. And I think, fortunately, it's all come to kind of fruition. But I think that is the big key that we have. Is I have Coach Kirkpatrick, Coach Trott, Coach Tesh, Coach Hansen, Coach Steinspring. I have a group of guys that have big game experience, that have been through a lot and seen a lot, have been successful and have been unsuccessful, because you learn a lot from being unsuccessful. You learn what not to do, and I think that experience not only has served us well in the past, it'll serve us well again this Saturday, because they also understand that they don't have all the answers. North Dakota State has a great coaching staff too, and they've got a very talented roster. And so the challenge is each one of us has to go out and perform each coming game, knowing that what we did in the past really is insignificant. But we got to use that experience to prepare ourselves for game day. So I think that's a benefit we have right now, and certainly I think that'll help us on Saturday, and hopefully it'll be enough.
I think it was last year when you said you wanted to be built to play in games like this and be able to beat North Dakota State. What was it from afar that you admired about North Dakota State's program and the consistency that they had built there?
The physicality, the dominance, the way they attack you in all three phases. And you look at championship teams. Look at Alabama last night. I mean, that's what you saw. You saw a physically dominant defense, a punishing ground game, and a disciplined football team. And I don't think anybody that watched those two games yesterday, I would say most of them feel like Alabama's going to win the national championship. Now, certainly Georgia has a lot to say about that. So, But, you know, you see the way that team is built, and that's what I saw when I watched North Dakota State. And I've referenced the practice and spring practice many times 2 years ago when we were sitting there and I had a group of really, really talented players that didn't know how to win, and they didn't know how to compete, and they didn't know how to play physical, hard-nosed football. Well, they were great when we spread everybody out and in space. They had tremendous athleticism, and they could make you look silly, and they had, and they'd had success scoring points, but they could not win ball games at critical times because they weren't built defensively to do that. And when they had to run the football, they'd struggle to run the football against really good defenses. And so we went about, creating that kind of competition in practice. And that's the only way you can do it. You have to instill that mindset of being physically dominant at the point of contact. And I always reference that. It's a phrase I use a lot, but that's what it comes down to. And this game this Saturday, what's going to make it so good is both teams have the same mindset. Both teams are very, very physical. Both teams are going to come right at you. Both teams have players that not only have ability, but they are tough and hard-nosed players. And so it's going to be one of those games that's probably a lot of fun to watch in the stands, and one that I may age 5 years just in 3 hours Saturday. But it's that you have two teams that play the game the way I think it's supposed to be played, and I think the formula that these two teams use are what wins championships. I don't care if you're talking about at the FCS level or the FBS level or the NFL. You look at what wins these ball games, and it comes down to the intangibles these two teams have.
More of a fun, loose question for you. The flight to Frisco, not terribly long, but do you continue prep work on that flight? Do you have a good book to read? Is that nap time for Coach Houston?
Well, we'll see. We get on the plane tomorrow about 12. I'll have Reed and Owen right behind me. So at some point during the flight, they're not going to sit there for 3 hours still. I can promise you. So it's probably going to be a pretty eventful flight. I don't plan on getting any work done during those 3 hours, but there should be a lot of laughs. So, the thing is we were able to work it out where the families are on the flight with us this year. And so that'll be enjoyable for all the coaches and their wives and the children. So it'll just be us and the players and Mr. Bourne and his wife. I think that's about it on the plane. So it should be a good time. But, the one thing with the players is we've talked about once we get there, it's all business. But I think certainly during that flight, everybody will be pretty relaxed.
Coach, you talked about the expectation at the beginning of the year, these two teams in the national championship. Now that you've had 3 weeks, as we get closer and closer, the pressure sort of builds, at least from us, the media, the fans, the chatter on social media. How have you used the downtime, the non-practice time for this team to not allow the pressure to build up on them and the noise to seep in? You've done a good job of keeping the noise out to this point. How have you managed that over this extended period where there are no classes and just limited practice time?
Well, I never look at that stuff, so that's the easy way about it for me. But, we talk about it with the players a lot. Just, our internal expectations are going to exceed any external expectations. So we really don't care what anybody else thinks, because nobody has put the work in or the time in to prepare the way these coaches and kids have. So they understand what it takes to be successful, and we expect to be successful. So all that other stuff just really doesn't matter because it'll come down to, doing the things that good football teams do, doing those things consistently throughout the game on Saturday, taking advantage of the opponent's mistakes and us not making the big mistake. Those are the things that are going to dictate winning and losing. But the expectations externally, really don't have a factor because we've been focused on our internal expectations.
Anything else, gentlemen? Coach Houston, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Hope to see everybody in Frisco, Texas. Go Dukes!
JMU head football coach Mike Houston.